Good afternoon. Since I became Attorney General, I have made clear that the Department of Justice will speak through its court filings and its work. Just now, the Justice Department has filed a motion in the Southern District of Florida to unseal a search warrant and property receipt relating to a court-approved search that the FBI conducted earlier this week. That search was of premises located in Florida belonging to the former president. The department did not make any public statements on the day of the search. The former president publicly confirmed the search that evening, as is his right. Copies of both the warrant and the FBI property receipt were provided on the day of the search to the former president's counsel, who was on site during the search. The search warrant was authorized by a federal court upon the required finding of probable cause. The property receipt is a document that federal law requires law enforcement agents to leave with the property owner. The department filed the motion to make public the warrant and receipt in light of the former president's public confirmation of the search, the surrounding circumstances, and the substantial public interest in this matter. Faithful adherence to the rule of law is the bedrock principle of the Justice Department and of our democracy. Upholding the rule of law means applying the law evenly, without fear or favor. Under my watch, that is precisely what the Justice Department is doing. All Americans are entitled to the even-handed application of the law, to due process of the law, and to the presumption of innocence. Much of our work is by necessity conducted out of the public eye. We do that to protect the constitutional rights of all Americans and to protect the integrity of our investigations. Federal law, long-standing department rules, and our ethical obligations prevent me from providing further details as to the basis of the search at this time. There are, however, certain points I want you to know. First, I personally approved the decision to seek a search warrant in this matter. Second, the department does not take such a decision lightly. Where possible, it is standard practice to seek less intrusive means as an alternative to a search and to narrowly scope any search that is undertaken. Third, let me address recent unfounded attacks on the professionalism of the FBI and Justice Department agents and prosecutors. I will not stand by silently when their integrity is unfairly attacked. The men and women of the FBI and the Justice Department are dedicated, patriotic public servants. Every day, they protect the American people from crime and other threats to their safety while safeguarding our civil rights. They do so at great personal sacrifice and risk to themselves. I am honored to work alongside them. This is all I can say right now. More information will be made available in the appropriate way and at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Attorney General, the former president said this
FBI agents?
Thank you all for your questions, but as I said, this is all I can say at this time.
Is rhetoric on social media a problem and a threat to our democracy, Mr. Ward?
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Ms. Caraballo?
Yes.
Ms. Nomani?
Yes.
Ms. Tyler?
Yes.
Another question I have, do you believe that rhetoric targeting officials with violence for carrying out their constitutional duties is a threat to democracy, Mr. Ward? Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Only a few weeks after the attempted attack on a Supreme Court justice on June 25th, one of the witnesses, Alejandra Caraballo, tweeted out the following in response to a decision on abortion overturning Roe v. Wade, and I'll quote directly from the tweet: "The 6 justices who overturned Roe should never no peace again. It is our civic duty to accost them every time they're in public. They are pariahs. Since women don't have their rights, these justices should never have a peaceful moment in public again. I know something about being accosted. The night of January 5th, I was physically accosted on the streets of DC in Navy Yard by a constituent of mine. I fervently blamed rhetoric on social media, rhetoric at public events, for being physically accosted. I carry a gun everywhere I go when I am in my district and I'm at home, because I know personally that rhetoric has consequences. I've had my car keyed. I've had my house spray painted. I had someone trespass in my house as recently as August. I've been doxxed on social media about where I live. And I've had to add to security everywhere I go. Often, because I can't afford it, I have to carry my own firearm wherever I go. And Alejandra Caraballo also recently tweeted on November 19th, not even a month ago, that the Supreme Court, vested with the judicial power of the United States by our Constitution, stated they are not a legitimate court issuing decisions. And also the Supreme Court is an organ of the far right. So my last question today of Ms. Caraballo, do you stand by these comments, this kind of rhetoric on social media? And do you believe it's a threat to democracy?
Thank you, Representative, for the opportunity to clarify and provide context to my tweets.
I have a question, is it yes or no? Do you believe your rhetoric is a threat to democracy when you're calling to accost a branch of government, the Supreme Court?
I don't believe that's a correct characterization
What
of
you
my
tweeted,
statements.
though. Did you not tweet that? That you thought that the Supreme Court justices should be accosted?
What I'm
you
saying
tweet
is
that,
that
yes or
that is
no?
not an
Did you tweet
accurate characterization of my statements.
On June 8th of this year, a man was arrested near Justice Brett Kavanaugh's home in Maryland. He told law enforcement officers he wanted to kill a Supreme Court justice. He was found with a knife, with a pistol, 2 magazines, ammunition, pepper spray, zip ties, a hammer, crowbar, and duct tape.
Ms. Caraballo, on page 12 and 13 of your written testimony, you painted concerned parents as having been infiltrated by white nationalists and far-right militia groups, which played a significant role in school board protests. This has not actually been my experience with concerned parents. In your testimony, you wrote that in Loudoun County, Virginia, unfounded rumors that spread in local parent groups on Facebook about an alleged trans student sexually assaulting a girl in a bathroom led to a firestorm of several heated school board protests that descended into violence. But in fact, the perpetrator, it actually turned out, had committed 2 sexual assaults at 2 different Loudoun County schools in 2021 and was arrested on October 7th, 2021 by the Loudoun County Sheriff's Office. These weren't unfounded rumors, as you suggest. It actually turns out law enforcement had to act because a sexual assault occurred. So giving this, I'm assuming that until now you were unaware of what happened here, and you're going to update your testimony for the committee. Is that correct?
Joe Biden's war on American energy didn't start when he took the oath of office as president. I want to take you back to one of the presidential debates when Joe Biden fittingly was standing to the left of Bernie Sanders. If you're looking at the TV, here's Bernie Sanders. To the left is Joe Biden. And by the way, the policies that Joe Biden espoused were also to the left of Bernie Sanders. Joe Biden said as a candidate, quote, "No more drilling on federal lands. No more drilling, including offshore. No ability for the oil and gas industry to continue to drill. Period. It ends." That's what Joe Biden said about American energy as a candidate. And unfortunately, what we've seen since he became president of the United States was a constant barrage and attack on American energy. started with the canceling of the Keystone Pipeline, which was thousands of American jobs, and a great partnership with our friend Canada. That oil was going to go somewhere. And we could have gotten that oil from Canada through a safe pipeline to America so that we wouldn't need to get oil from Russia. But Joe Biden said no. And it wasn't just Keystone. Joe Biden has not approved a single new pipeline in America since he's been president. And it's not that he's against all pipelines, as my colleagues have pointed out. He approved Russia's pipeline, the Nord Stream 2, which builds on top of the Nord Stream 1, which was already supplying Russian oil to parts of Europe. We could have been there to provide all of the oil and gas that Europe needs. And instead, Joe Biden turned off the spigots here and sent leverage to Putin, sent hundreds of millions of dollars a day to Putin to help fund this war in Ukraine. And when we look at gas prices, immediately as Joe Biden said no on federal lands, as he promised as a candidate, said no offshore to drilling, he then continued to attack through the regulatory agencies. Just about every regulatory agency out there is going after the ability for us to produce energy in America. And is it any surprise that not long after he did it, you saw prices starting to skyrocket? Not after Putin invaded Ukraine, but well before Putin invaded Ukraine, Joe Biden's attack on American energy had led to sticker shock at the pump. The pain at the pump is real. And by the way, it hits lowest income families the hardest. When Joe Biden just released his budget last week, he proposed another $45 billion in new taxes on oil and gas. That means families who are struggling already because of all the inflation, not just high gas prices, but inflation because of President Biden's massive trillions of dollars of spending here in Washington that's rising the cost of everything. He wants to now raise $45 billion in additional taxes on oil and gas. And by the way, unfortunately, the only promise I think he's kept is to go after American energy. He also promised that he wouldn't raise taxes on any American making less than $400,000 a year. Remember that promise? Joe Biden's broken that promise multiple times, and the latest of which is in his budget, because by proposing $45 billion in new taxes on oil and gas, the people that will pay that the most are low-income families. Not the millionaires and the billionaires that he talks about in his speeches. He's going to be kicking in the gut with higher taxes those people making less than $50,000 a year. They're the ones that are going to get hit the hardest. Well, he talks about windmills and solar panels and electric cars. We're for all of the above energy. But go look at who's buying the electric cars right now. And by the way, if you bought an electric car today, you can't plug that into a tree. You've got to plug it into an electric outlet that gets power. And most of that power comes from fossil fuels, which Joe Biden continues to attack. So the record's clear. People get this. As Elise said, the American people are smarter than Joe Biden gives them credit for. They know it's Joe Biden's policies, anti-American energy policies, that have led to this skyrocketing sticker shock at the pump, where it costs over $150 in some cases to fill your car. It doesn't need to be this way. We can be lowering the cost of energy, not by raiding the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which, by the way, the price today is above where it was when Joe Biden raided it yet again for the third time in his presidency. Let's open up American energy. Let's take power away from all the dictators of the world. Putin, whether it's Iran, Venezuela, stop begging dictators to produce our energy when we can produce it right here in America. By the way, cleaner than anywhere else in the world. You want to lower carbon emissions globally? Make more American energy. Make more products in America. Stop attacking American production and American workers. We're calling on Joe Biden to open up the spigots, and we're going to continue as Republicans to push for the policies that will open up American energy and lower the cost of gasoline at the pump. With that, we'll be happy to take some questions. Yeah.
So how do you guys plan to direct your questioning? What's your message to the oil executives tomorrow?
I'll let Jeff answer as well. I'm on the Energy and Commerce Committee, not on the subcommittee of jurisdiction, but they'll allow us to come on. You know, and some of the questions I want to ask, because we've got a number of pieces of legislation. Energy and Commerce Republicans, led by Catherine McMorris Rodgers, have filed legislation that will allow us to produce more American energy and lower the price of gasoline. Last week, the Natural Resources Republicans filed a package of bills, 6 different bills, that will specifically reverse some of the Obama regulations that are crushing American energy. And so we're going to be promoting that legislation, but we're going to also be asking some of the myths that are out there, like the 9,000 permits that President Biden wants to talk about. Oil companies aren't sitting on those leases. In many cases, what we hear from them is that they can't produce the leases that they have because every federal regulatory agency is blocking their ability to actually go drill in America. So President Biden last week said, we're going to tax people more if they don't produce their wells, while his own agencies are blocking them from producing the wells. So isn't that ironic, where the Biden administration first blocks them from doing their job and then says they're going to fine them because they can't do their job? We're going to have those kind of conversations.